All right. What's going on, everybody? This is your man, Dr. John C. Turner, aka the Professor JT. And I am once again hosting the Doc Chat. We're at episode 15. Time flies when you have fun. And I got some amazing doctors on today. So without further ado, I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. But first, if you're checking out the Doc Chat for the first time, if you are in a doctor program, if you are a doctor yourself, say hello to us in the chat because you are checking out the doc chat with us. And we love our commenters. We love our viewers. We appreciate y'all so much. So these great doctors touch my heart because all of us have different doctor degrees from different institutions in Indiana. Yes, this is happening, folks. This is real. And we are so excited to have these folks on there doing phenomenal work. I'm a fan of all of them, and we're going to let them do their thing. So first, we're going to introduce the educator Barnes, Dr. Shantae Barnes. She's here today. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Welcome to the Doc Chat.
Well, hey, everybody. I'm really glad to be on the show this evening. I am Shantae Chacole Stockton Barnes. Most people know me as Educator Barnes. I'm an education writer in Indianapolis for the Indianapolis Recorder and for Indy Kids Winning, where I serve as the editor-in-chief. And I am an education consultant. I co-own a publishing company with my husband, and I just fight for excellent education for all students. So that's me in a nutshell. And I'll add, I'm a mother of identical twin boys who are 12. So that's a lot as well.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Dr. Uzoma Obidike, we appreciate you being on the Doc Chat. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Welcome to the show.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Turner. I'm so grateful to be here with all of you this evening. Hi, everyone. As he said, I'm Dr. Uzoma Obidike. I reside in Northwest Indiana, currently a clinical experiences and internship manager at National Louis University. I'm also the founder of She Leads Beautifully, where I teach women in stagnant careers how to leverage their professional networks to access their dream careers. So I just defended my dissertation at Indiana State University in the Higher Education Leadership Program. My topic is the role of conforming pressures of physical appearance on the career experiences of senior level Black women administrators in higher education.
Epic. Absolutely epic. We got some fans already showing love to y'all. We love it. We absolutely love it. And our good friend, Dr. Whitty, we appreciate you tuning in once again to the Doc Chat. This is awesome stuff. Now, we have to introduce Dr. Clinton Whitson. This is my brother from another mother of a different color. We've been doing our thing a long time, and I appreciate him being on the show. Welcome to the Doc Chat.
Dr. Turner, thanks for having me. Like he said, my name is Clint Whitson. I serve as Assistant Dean of Student Affairs within the Health Professions Academic Programs at Marian University. I also just finished my Doctorate of Education in Organizational Leadership, also at Marian University. I just finished this spring, and my research topic, I was studying levels of grit and resilience in medical students, specifically what the impact of prior clinical experience is on their grit and resilience, sort of focusing my study around sort of burnout and mental wellness issues in the health professions academic programs. I've been at Marian now for 10 years, and when I'm not there, I am at home with my wife and our 3 boys, who are 12, 10, and 6, and all 3 right now playing baseball and keeping us very busy.
I love it. And we'll go ahead and start with Dr. Barnes. This is how we do it on the Doc Chat. The first thing is, why go to the doctorate? Twin boys, doing your thing in education, the doctorate is the way for me.
That's a good question. I went to Purdue for undergrad, English education. I was an English teacher for a while. Then I got my master's degree, and I really didn't intend to do that, but I was working with multilingual learners, and I couldn't get them to obtain English. So I'm like, I need to go back and become a better educator. So I got my master's in language education. When I finished that program, And I finished that program at IUPUI. That's when IUPUI started saying they were going to have this urban education doctorate program. And I was adjuncting to IUPUI, and I went to talk to my dad about it. And I said, Dad, I think I'm going to get this doctor's degree. And my dad was like, well, why are you going to do that? It's not like they're going to give you a pay raise. And I was really shocked because my dad was very big about education. Everybody, my cousin are like, Uncle Jim, the only thing he's going to ask you about, how are your grades, how your school, are you going to college? So for my dad to essentially tell me that he didn't support me getting my doctorate degree, I did not pursue it at that time because my dad did not support it. So I go on in my career, and then I start feeling like, wait, this is something I do want to do because I do want to become more knowledgeable in this field. As I switched over to being a literacy coach, I wanted to become more proficient in what I was doing. So I went back to my dad and said, hey, Dad, so this is like 3 years later. I said, Dad, I want to do this. And I understand that you don't support me. I really want to do this. And my dad says to me, he said, I actually supported you the first time, but you weren't serious enough about it because I was able to talk you out of it. And he said, the fact that you came to me and said, you want to do this, even if I don't support it, I support you. And he was still like, I still don't think you're going to get a pay raise, but I know that you are serious about it now. And so from that point on, he kept pushing me as the program got harder and harder, which we'll probably get into later. But in the nutshell, at first, I didn't really see that for myself, but then I got to a point where I'm like, yes, I think that's something I want to do. And for me, it was just a pursuit of knowledge. Now I'm pursuing knowledge that does not involve paying tuition. So
I love it. Dr. Obidike, why go do this? And you have family and kids yourself. Just wanted to make sure we put that out. These are all family folks going to get that doctorate degree.
So yes, thank you. I didn't share earlier. I am married and I have a daughter who is 3 years old. So if we count back, and I guess I'll share, I started this program 10 years ago. So I was not married. I did not have a kid when I started this program. So things definitely changed. But for me, one of the reasons why I decided to go for a doctorate, it really wasn't because I ever wanted one. I never wanted a master's degree, let's be honest. I think it was just the nature of how things fell into place for me. Not finding a job right after college. And then I went into the master's program. But then the doctoral experience came about because I come from a family of immigrants. I'm Nigerian American. So if you know anything about Nigerian culture, it's a lot about education and getting more education and getting more education. And so that's just something that I've always knew about in my household and just culturally. And so when I worked at Ivy Tech Community College, I was there for about 5 years as the bi-regional director for student life development and leadership. And at the time, I recall there being some sort of partnership between Ivy Tech and Indiana State University where they were, inviting students to come be a part of their program and to start their doctoral program at Indiana State. So there's a lot of talk about that when I was working there. So maybe it's peer pressure, I don't know, but a lot of that came up during that time, like, you should get a doctorate. I'm like, okay. And so I had a number of conversations with people about it, and that's what really piqued my interest. But there was one person in particular, Dr. Tony Thomas, I'll call him out because he's been a really strong mentor for me from the beginning. And he was at one of the campuses and was selling Girl Scout cookies on behalf of his daughter. And so I went over there, I'll make the story really short, but we were talking as I was buying cookies and he was finishing up the program. And so I mentioned I was interested, and he put in a phone call to his chair, was like, hey, someone in here wants to start the program. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm not interested. Like, this is way out. Can buy some cookies. What's going on? And then before you know it, on the call was like, you have a week before the deadline. So I was like, what? So here I am feeling a little bit of pressure to get my materials in, took the GRE, applied all the things, and I got admitted. Like, I got the letter months later. I couldn't turn it down. And honest to goodness, that was the reason how I got in this program. If it wasn't for that, I probably would never have applied.
That's epic.
But I guess thinking of for real why, it's really about me challenging myself. I think I've fallen into opportunities similarly to that. And I've never truly felt like I've earned my space because I've always found my way into, whether it's, I wouldn't say job, but more schools in ways similar to this. And I felt in a way that I had to prove myself, that I had to finish, right? that I didn't earn it for whatever reason. And there's that imposter syndrome that we hear about a lot. And I faced that a lot during my career and even in academically. And it was a way to validate for myself that I can do it and that I can achieve a lot of things. And so having to figure out what that why was, that's what carried me through.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Dr. Woody is letting you know, Dr. Barnes, hey, that is the way to go. Knowledge that doesn't involve paying tuition, hey, you got to go for it. That's epic stuff right there. Dr. Whitson, 3 young people running around the house. Shout out to Jen.
Yeah, for sure. That's I definitely want to talk about my significant other at some point.
Yeah, go right ahead. Why go get it? Why go get that doctorate degree?
You know, I let's see, I finished my master's program in 2007. So it's been a little while. And my first job out of grad school was in career development, career services. And I remember telling students at the time, you know, the best investment you can make is the investment in yourself. And I really remember thinking, even back then, straight out of my master's program, someday I'd really like to pursue a doctorate. And I wasn't sure exactly what at the time. And fast forward a few years, I was working at Obidike in the exact same position that Dr. Obidike was up in Northwest Indiana, but I was in Central Indiana in Indianapolis, and thinking I was going to start a doctoral program at that time. But then my current position became available, and I switched jobs, and I thought, well, maybe I should get my feet under me in this new job before I start a doc program. And then here it is 10 years later, and I have finally finished. You know, I think the why for me has sort of changed over time. It really, there is a piece, and I do believe in the idea that the best investment is the one we make in ourselves. And so pursuing more education, I do understand at some point, right, we have to start thinking about how are we going to pay back all this money. But pursuing education is never a bad idea. And pursuing an investment in ourselves is never a bad idea. I think when I finally took the plunge and got in, I did not have much experience in research, and I felt like I was missing some sort of identification with my faculty colleagues, and not that I don't have plans to become faculty, but as an administrator, I want to know the world of research better. I want to know the world of sort of adding to the literature, and that's one reason that that's now in my career now, it's probably one of the primary reasons or the reasons I'm really glad that I did it.
Yeah, and that's amazing. That's amazing right there. So much connection here with us all being in Indiana, which I'm so proud of. Me and Dr. Whitson were in the same master's program together at Indiana State. Me and Dr. Barnes. I mean, Jermaine Barnes, that was my brother, man. He's still my brother. So just to see y'all and to see y'all raising great young men, I appreciate the pictures that you post and the work you're doing. I'm like, they're going to catch up in height with Jermaine pretty soon. Like, it's pretty amazing. So I love it. And Dr. Obidike, I got to think about like us in Ivy Tech, me, you, and Clint at the same time. It's just amazing to see how all of us have come together in this amazing way to even get doctor degrees. And we're going to go on to the next part with Dr. Barnes, because now you're in the program. That one, the program you finished with. So tell us about that process and what made you say, yeah, I think I'm going to move on to something else.
So that's interesting. So at the time I finished my master's in language education at IUPUI in 2012, started in the urban education PhD program in 2018, was in the program for a year. And I was like, I'm not feeling this program. And of course I got to talk to my dad about it because that's my go-to person. And my dad's like, this again. And I know when my dad said this again. Undergrad, my major was elementary education, then it was math education, then it was English education. When I went to IUPUI, I actually started off with secondary education before I switched to language education. So my dad is like, here we go again. You have signed up for something and now you're unsure. And I said, Dad, well, I felt like the program wasn't as organized as I needed. I'm a very A-type organized person. I didn't like the communication, but I was like, I didn't want to quit this program until I was sure. So I talked to one of my mentors at IUPUI who said, well, the language education degree in the master's is now called literacy, culture, and language education. And they have an EDD and a PhD program for that. So I looked at IU Bloomington. While I'm still in the PhD program, I apply to IU Bloomington, get into that program. And at one semester, I was in both programs at the same time. Wow. So I'm like, I'm going to use this semester to figure it out. And for me, my husband and I, we live a debt-free lifestyle. So I'm paying tuition out of my pocket. Wow. So I'm not borrowing money. I'm taking classes what I can afford. But my husband's like, I know we're not borrowing money, but I want you to get in one program or the other. You can't just be in both, which I understand. So I switched over to IU Bloomington completely because I felt like it aligned more with the work I was already doing, because at this time, I don't see myself pursuing a professor role. I still do adjuncting, but I do a lot of consulting, and I still want to be in the K-12 space. So for me, some people are like, well, you switched from PhD to EDD because it was easier. I'm like, they both were as hard as hell. Like neither one of them was easier in my mind. You still have to do a dissertation. You still have to defend. So I think people have optics about whether you got a PhD versus the EDD. And I think that's just ridiculous because we're all paying the same tuition. We're all going through the same application. But that's why I switch. And I tell people, like, if you're paying your money, whether you're paying it out of your pocket or you're taking out a loan and paying it back, don't waste time doing something that you don't enjoy. And I wasn't enjoying the program at IUPUI. When I had those classes at IU Bloomington, I was really enjoying them. I really started to connect with my classmates, and my classmates were all across the globe. So I was actually getting to hear how some of this multilingual application was happening with my classmates who were in China, my classmates who were working in Mexico, my classmates that were working in the Middle East. And so for me, working in schools where students are coming from these countries, I'm hearing firsthand knowledge, and that actually feeds what I was actually doing in the K-12 space. So for me, it was an easy switch. Some people have their opinions, but I don't spend too much time worrying about other people's opinions because their opinions and thoughts don't pay my bills. So.
There you go. There you go. Dr. Obidike, you get in there. There's no husband, no kid. You are coming through this. First of all, how did the husband and kid come into the picture? Because I'm sure that was a piece that kind of extended out your journey. And how was it just going through that in-game process of getting that doctorate degree?
Yes, so you're absolutely right. My first 2 years of the program at Indiana State University were more structured, right? So we had the 2 years of coursework and the summer. And so after I completed my prelims, the written and oral, that was in July of 2015. I met my husband in November of 2015, and he was in Nigeria at the time. I was here. We were connected through a cousin of mine, and that was a really short courtship. And so without getting into too much detail about that, I remember in our program, a faculty told us on day one, don't get married, jokingly, don't get married, don't have kids, don't do anything like that because it's going to really delay your process. And then I laugh about it now because that's really what happened. But there's definitely more to it than that. But I met my husband, and that's really a lot of things that changed. Not just that, but having to go to Nigeria, fly back, fly again. We got married within 7 months of knowing one another, bringing him here, his family here, planning a wedding, all the things. And around that same time, I had also lost my job at Ivy Tech due to a reduction in force. So losing my job during that time. I'll share here, I'm pretty public about it. I had lost my first pregnancy during that time. And so everything kind of just went downhill from there. There were a lot of really high moments, but there were a lot of really tough moments at the same time as well. And so it got to a point where I decided to put the doctoral degree on hold. Now, again, this is the part where the dissertation started, and there's not a lot of structure around that. So as an individual, you have to really be on top of things or else you can easily fall off. And for me, I was in the season where I was wanting to prioritize family life prioritize myself and my health and my personal well-being during that period. And so it took me a long time to really get back on track with finishing. So I know that you hear stories about, relationships that hit rocky roads during the doctoral process. That's one of the things that I didn't want to let interfere with my marriage, being that it was so new and we were just getting to know one another, honestly, because we just met and we got married pretty quickly. And so I really wanted to nurture that relationship. And I'm glad that I took that route and took a little bit longer with school.
Yeah, that's definitely key when going into relationships, and especially when you're in this doctorate degree. That word choice is a huge word because some folks, hey, I got to choose to put this doctor degree down for a little bit to get this family thing right. Some folks, it's like, hey, the doctor degree, maybe the family be on hold. Like when I was in my doctor degree, and I always says PhD to me meant pretty horrible dating. And so, hey, I'm glad it worked out for somebody because people still believe in love and believe in relationships. And we go to good Dr. Whitson here. You already had a great spouse there. Now you're in the doctorate degree. I can't remember if all the boys were there yet, but if they were, that was a pretty pretty impressive embarking to say I'm going into this with wife and 3 boys.
Yeah, I finished the program in 3 years, and it was easily the most intense 3 years I've ever had in my life.
I believe it.
It was also, I would say it's pretty safe to say that within that 3 years, and especially in the last 6 to 8 months while I was trying to finish the research project, probably some of the most mentally stressful moments of my life as well. And so I remember thinking for most of the time, putting a lot of pressure on myself to finish. Like, I've got to finish in 3 years. I told myself I would do this in 3 years. And then over the course of those 3 years, several of my classmates chose to decelerate, and they're still in the program, but they'll, maybe they'll graduate next year or the year after. And now that I finished, I can absolutely see how that becomes a reality. I think until I was in the program, because I had friends who did PhDs and EDDs prior to this, and they, I think I was nervous about, is this going to, last much longer than I think, and having been through it, I can absolutely see how that can happen, and that um, sort of like, if you've ever heard the saying, like, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. Well, that's sort of like, I felt like I was really, and maybe I should have slowed down. Maybe I should have taken 4 or 5 years. I don't know, but I'm not saying that my path is the right one. But I know for sure that I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have been able to do this without my wife, for sure. She really took on an extreme amount of work. I was still present, but there were, days and hours and of being in the library or shut away in my home office, like I'm sitting in right now. She still says that I owe her 3 years of dishes, washing the dishes. I owe her 3 years of doing bath time and bedtime.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's just going to sit on the deck with a glass of wine in her hand while I do those things, I think. No, we joke about that, but it's real. I couldn't have done it without, and it doesn't, my recommendation for those listening in, it doesn't necessarily have to be a significant other. It doesn't have to be a spouse, but I really believe that the power of some kind of support system is necessary, even if it's just someone that you call and talk through your really tough times, because there will be really tough times. And I had some of those people that I called by phone, and then I also had, I had Jen, who was here in the house, but I can't speak highly enough about having a strong support system in place.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Yeah, we appreciate Dr. Whitty always tuning in, always giving good facts. We appreciate the work that you did, especially inspiring your colleagues to get that work done. That support system is huge. It is absolutely humongous. And we appreciate all the work these great doctors have done Once again, this is the Doc Chat with your man, Dr. John C. Turner, aka the Professor JT. Got Dr. Barnes, Dr. Obidike, and Dr. Whitson, and they are sharing some stuff that I'm telling you, y'all need to hear. If somebody ain't tuning in, you better tell them to tune in, because you can't get this anywhere but here at the Doc Chat, and I appreciate them sharing their incredible stories. Now we're going to talk about that finish line, and we're going to start with Dr. Obidike. I got to start with you because your journey was intense, and I appreciate even you keeping folks updated, especially being on LinkedIn, letting people know the real. Like, I'm still in this, but it's been a journey, and you just finished, literally just finished a couple weeks ago. Tell us about that finish line, defending that dissertation. Tell us what it meant to get there.
Wow, I didn't expect to get emotional and teary-eyed over here.
That's what we do on the Doc Chat. We talking about it. That's
yeah,
it.
because I'm looking on my wall and I have things that friends have sent me, things that I've written for myself, post-it notes for reasons to why I need to finish, and saying like you're only a few weeks or a few months away from graduating. Like, I'm looking at this, and I've been looking at these post-it notes for years. They've been falling down because it's been years. The stickiness is coming off, and it's finally here. It took me, and part of me, I was caught up in emotion. Can you restate that question so I get it correct?
We're just talking about you and the finish. That's it.
Just how I got here.
That's it. That's it.
I think what Dr. Whitson said about support, I'll be honest, that's what got me through. Having people in my corner on the many days and weeks and months and years of not wanting to open my laptop and even look at chapter 2 without crying. It's not that I couldn't do it. I think this journey for me, there was a lot of mindset stuff that was attached to it. It wasn't that I didn't know how to write. It was a lot of the emotions cut up around, I'm tired of looking at this and changing it. It's not good enough. And then I spent all this time on this, but it's not right. So you know what? And I'm dealing with life, right? I had other losses that required me to have surgeries, multiple surgeries over a series of 5 years. And it's been a lot of things that I've had to deal with that people don't see on the outside, right? So I get carried away into other things like She Leads Beautifully and putting all of my energy and attention there because that's what brought me joy. That's what I could control. But I had to sit real with myself and then listen to my husband and listen to my parents and my siblings and my good friends who are like, Uzoma, you need to finish. And I've been avoiding this thing. And so what really helped me get to the finish line was seeking out help. I have worked with, I have the school, I have my committee, but I also needed a certain type of support that I wasn't getting from the school. A lot of my cohort members had already graduated, so I was kind of on my own. I didn't have that cohort anymore. So I did work with 2 separate coaches across, over the years. I started off with one. Are we allowed to mention names? No names.
Of course.
So one was Dr. Guy E. White, the dissertation mentor who I found from doing a search on YouTube. And so he helped me kind of get started when I was in a really long slump.
Nice.
And then once I, graduated from his program and I was off again for a while, I then found Dr. Marvette Lacey with the Paul Scholars Program. And that one is really what helped me finish because she has a cohort model of students who are also kind of in the same boat. And it was like school again. It's what I needed. I needed to kind of have people with me going through the same thing. So we would have our right-away sessions every Wednesday and Sunday. And so coming in there in this space and just being coached and realizing that I wasn't the only one feeling the way I was feeling, that it's not about the writing, right? If I sat down and did the work, I could have been finished years ago, but there were so many other blocks that I was struggling with, right? Still trying to figure it out, being a new wife, being a new mom. I had my daughter right in the middle of the pandemic. Also on May 25th, 2020, we all know what happened that day. So when I came home from the hospital and there was so much going on in the world, I felt like I was in the twilight zone. And so dealing with real life, in addition to thinking about school, is not easy. So support was something that I really needed desperately in order to help me through the finish line. And so I have close friends in my corner who were able to be my accountability buddy, writing sessions at 10 o'clock at night, wherever I could find someone to sit down and write with me, that's what I did. And that's what helped me finish for sure.
So tell me about the day getting done defending.
Man, it felt like it was months ago. I think it was just 2 weeks ago. And I still don't believe it. Putting doctor in front of my name here, there's still the paperwork and things to go through, but in short, I'm proud of myself. I think going back to saying, the one of the posted notes that was here was just to say that I did it. I had a 1.9 GPA when I was a freshman in college, my first semester. I wasn't the smartest student on paper. And I kind of went through college years and even getting into my master's years by accident, and doctoral program, just kind of like I said. And so I believed in my head that I didn't earn my place in some of these seats, right? And for whatever reason, that's the case. That was it for me. And so finishing is like, yes, it took me a long time, but yes, I still did it. Yes, I had to support others along the way, but yes, I still did it. And that's something that I have personally struggled with my entire academic career. And sitting here now, it's going to take a minute to let it sink in. I'll be honest.
Oh, yeah, it definitely will. And there's nothing wrong with that. We appreciate you, Dr. Roz, tuning in. He's talking about rhythms getting knocked off. Some people go through some things before they defend that dissertation, and that is real talk for real right there. We appreciate, once again, everybody tuning in. If you are here, comment, let us know you're here. Shout out these great doctors, the great work they're doing. And I'm telling you, it's some beautiful stuff. Now, the good Dr. Obidike, we don't have those graduation pictures just yet. They're coming, folks, and we're going to have her back on so she can share those when she gets them. But I'm telling you, that stage is coming, that hooding is coming, and we cannot wait till she gets there. So without further ado, we're going to go to the great Dr. Barnes. Let me see if we can get her pulled up here. And I got to know about the finish line for you. What was the day like defending and then graduating in front of these great folks?
My defense was bittersweet. When my dad died during my doctoral process, and I was very, very close to my father. So he dies January 2nd, 2021, has a heart attack and is just gone. Like, my dad hadn't retired from work. He was debt free. He didn't need to work. He was just working to work, but he died at 71 years old. I wasn't expecting my father to die when I was still in my 30s. Like, that was not part of my life path. So and then it was like, even though my dad and mom had been married for over 3 decades, I was in charge of helping plan this funeral. And if you didn't attend a funeral during the pandemic or had to plan a funeral during the pandemic, it was an absolute nightmare. My father dies on January 2nd. We didn't bury him till the last week of January because the funeral home was doing funerals Sunday through Saturday. And that was the earliest they could get the funeral in. So I'm still in classes, right? I'm still taking my classes, still trying to do my little papers and still trying to be prepared. And also it's like, I have to do all this stuff for the funeral. I have to attend the funeral weeks later. So for me, when the fifth day came, it was really hard for me because I'm like, my dad is not going to be here. So one of the things I did, and I actually haven't moved it, I put a picture of my dad back there as me and my dad when I was about 17 years old. So I put it behind me because I defended via Zoom because IU Bloomington, it hasn't had us come back to do defenses in person yet since the pandemic has happened. So when I was looking on Zoom, I could see him behind me. And that helped me defend. But his brother was able to send. My father-in-law, who is the same age as my dad, lives in Jackson, Mississippi, had been retired, had never been on Zoom, and got on Zoom for the first time. Now, he was the person like all up there, like, am I in the thing? I was like, oh my gosh, Pops. But he attended and he supported me, which I really, really appreciated. I will say, I'm not going to say who, but somebody on my committee butchered my first name. So, that was one of the only times I didn't make a correction because my stomach was already in knots about the fact that my dad wasn't going to be there. And I said, I cannot address this right now. I have to stay focused. I don't think I mentioned this earlier. My dissertation was called Still I Rise. Yes, from the Maya Angelou poem. Literacy rich is exploring girls' participation in literacy rich STEM experiences. So essentially, I want to know about that intersection of literacy and STEM and how girls participate, whether they're in a girls only section or in a co mixed gender section doing STEM literacy rich experiences. So for me, within that last year, I did my qualifying exams, did my research proposal, did my research studies, finished and defended. I did that within that last year. So for me, that it was crazy. And I see my husband here. My husband like literally had to parent solo, and people don't talk about that. And I'm very, very adamant that people make jokes about like how, oh, my husband has to watch the kids, as if my husband is not my co-parent. He is my co-parent, but sometimes he was flying solo. Sometimes he was cooking dinner, picking up my boys, signing permission slips because, I turned in a chapter, and then my dissertation chair, she was a wonderful chair. Now I'm like, oh, all of these comments I have to go and address, get another article. And then if you write a dissertation, even if you know the knowledge, even if you're in the work, you have to quote somebody else. And so I had a hard time with I know this literacy thing. Like I know this is what I've been teaching for a decade. No, you got to cite your source. You're just postulating. You have to cite something. So that was a hard thing. But my nieces who are pictured here, Zoe and Phoenix, they were able to come see me. My sister as well. And then my boys and my husband got to see me. And at IU Bloomington, they do a graduate ceremony, and then they do a School of Education. At the graduate ceremony, they butcher my name. But at the School of Education one, they said my whole name correctly, which I really appreciated. So for me, it was a relief. Someone had mentioned about circadian rhythms being off. I was having like crazy insomnia. My husband knew this. There was one point in time I probably went 3 days with no sleep. I couldn't go to sleep. Like I could not fall asleep. Didn't matter what I did. I couldn't go to sleep. But once I defended and I turned in my revisions, I felt like my sleep just came back into a natural pattern because you just had this running thing in your head. I have to work. I have to do revision. I have to read another article. I have to revise this. I have to do something else. And so for me, I was dealing with grief. Because grief, I tell people, it's not like 1, 2, 3. I can be fine. And then I hear, the Four Tops singing on the radio. And that was one of my dad's favorite songs. And here I'm back here, all a hot mess. So for me, getting to that finish line was a realization that it was the first time in my life I was doing something that my dad would have attended that he did not attend. So for me, it was like that first time, I did this. And my dad was my biggest cheerleader, and I had to learn how to self-manage my anxiety without being able to talk to him and for him to tell me the things. I had to start telling myself. So, of course, I wish my dad was here, but I learned a lesson that I needed to learn, that I can do this on my own. So I feel like I was all over the place, but it's that's how it was. I just felt like that last year was a whole blur. I can't really tell you some of the things my kids did because I honestly wasn't there. And to Dr. Whitson's point, sometimes you wonder if you should have slowed down because you miss things. I can't go back in time and go see a band concert that I wasn't able to attend because I was doing research. So those are the things. There are trade-offs, and I don't regret the path I took, but I think people need to be cognizant of the fact that there are trade-offs. And if you're going to go this route, what things are you willing to sacrifice? What things are you willing to trade off to get to that end goal?
Absolutely phenomenal. And we appreciate the amazing work that you did. We know your dad is proud. My father passed away during mine as well, and he was my only living parent. And so it does shake you up knowing you're at that finish line, and those people that you got into the program saying, I can't wait to do this for them. That one person, and that person's not there. It's real talk, folks. It's real talk. And we're proud of you, Dr. Shante Barnes. Definitely very proud of you. We are here today, folks. This is the Doc Chat. Your host, Dr. John C. Turner, aka the Professor JT. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for everybody tuning in. Show love to these great doctors. I'm telling you, they put it to the metal, their foot to it, and they did the work, and we're very proud of them. So we're going to go with my man, Dr. Clint Whitson. Let me get you pulled up here. Tell me about finally defending and getting to that finish line.
Yeah, I honestly, a lot of what's already been said is exactly what I'm thinking. Dr. Barnes, it sort of goes back to something you said earlier about how easy it is to, if you're able to be talked out of the program. When you're as you're thinking about deciding, is this for me or is it not for me? If it's sort of easy for someone to talk you out of it, then perhaps you're not ready, because there will be some challenges. There will be sort of a roller coaster of issues that come up. But that's sort of the thing with anything that's worth doing, right? It's difficult, but then when you get through it, I remember when I finished my defense, it was truly, that we hear people talk about the weight being lifted off the shoulders. It's a real feeling. That's walking out of that room. My wife was there at the defense as well. She brought cake and cookies and that kind of thing. But when I was done answering the questions, and then I was asked to leave the room, I come back in the room, and my chair announces, congratulations, Dr. Whitson. It was, I got emotional. I was teary-eyed. It was just, you put your heart and soul into this, and if you're not ready to do that, then I would say, maybe it's not the right time for you, because it really does take all of your attention, all of your emotional and physical and psychological being. It takes a strong support system. I could not have done this without my family and my wife and my kids. But then, yeah, I just in that last 2 to 3 month stretch where I was submitting my final work and going back and forth with my committee about revisions before I defended, I was focusing on almost nothing else. I was focusing on the program and my research project, and I was putting a ton of my family things on hold. I was putting a lot of work things on hold to realize this goal. And again, I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do or the right way to go about it. But I do think, like Dr. Barnes, like you said, I think anyone who pursues this path, there will come a time when you have to decide, what are you willing to sacrifice? Because you just can't do it all. I remember going in, before I started this program, I was very active in nonprofit boards. And I had a very, very full personal life. I had a very full work life. I had a very full life in general. And I had to put a ton of that stuff on hold, and it was crushing, because those are, especially the nonprofit work is, it's good for my soul. Like it's part of my mission in life. But I had to put that on hold, and I'm excited to get back into it now. But for 3 years, I wasn't doing that, and it was sort of crushing to have to do that. But it's a wonderful feeling to be done.
Yeah. To talk about that graduation day, man, because you are part of historic cohorts, and that program being the very first cohort to graduate from that organizational leadership program at Marian University.
That's right. This is the doctorate in organizational leadership, the doctorate of education in organizational leadership, based on the model of adaptive leadership through Harvard. And the picture you're looking at right now, those are my classmates. We finished together, and I'm sure it's partly because we are the first cohort in this new program, but we are family. And that's another thing that I wasn't necessarily anticipating, was I expected to be able to lean on my classmates as a resource. I was not anticipating the family connection we made, and so I highly recommend the cohort model type of program, and my recommendation would be to really break down your nervousness and the first day jitters. Like, just try to break down any barriers with your classmates as quickly as possible, so that you get to know them on a very personal level.
Yeah.
And really lean on each other for all sorts of different support.
Nice. Let's make sure we get everybody's great work here. Still want to get you pulled up here. All right. Doing great work. Talk about your work a little bit. Tell us everything that you're doing so the people will know this is what the good doctor is doing right now.
Yeah, so I have various passions. One of them is, as I said, she leads beautifully. And this was something that I started back in 2017, so right before I left Ivy Tech. And I've always wanted to enter into entrepreneurship. My parents, my father, they're entrepreneurs. My parents just came back from Nigeria. Dad's building a hotel in Nigeria, which is really awesome. And like Dr. Barnes, I'm really inspired by my father, by my parents, and just the things that they continue to do. The any type of dream that they have, idea they have, they just go for it. And so for me, when I was thinking of some things that I wanted to do additionally beyond my, air quotes, like 9 to 5, it was something that wasn't just for me, but really to help others. And what I was seeing that was a need, where there was a need, was with women in their careers and feeling stalled and not having the courage to step out and do more, right? I would have conversations with colleagues at work, and they would say things like, oh, I love what I do now, but I also see myself doing this, and but how do I get there? And so She Leads Beautifully has evolved, and I didn't share the beginning title of my dissertation, but it's called Beauty and the Boss. I had the title around the same time that I wanted to start this, so they're kind of in line. But She Leads Beautifully has since pivoted now, and so I focus more as a career coach with a niche on networking and teaching folks how to leverage their networks to gain access to their dream careers. And so one thing that I noticed from building my community over the few years is that networking was a piece that was missing. And I shared a little bit about my experiences and finding my way through opportunities. And I realized that I have a gift of networking and how to tap into opportunities that aren't necessarily the traditional ones, right, through the front door or the traditional doors that we see, that there are many ways to access opportunities. And when we talk about equity in terms of job searching, one of the things that I've noticed is women, and particularly Black women, are not always getting access to certain types of roles, not because they're not qualified or they're not able to, but they're just some of the things that they weren't taught or were told were not appropriate or they didn't think was for them, right? Always working hard and not really building social capital. And so I leverage all the things that I've learned along the way from my research, and this is the path that I decided to move with it. And so far it's been going great. I have a community of almost 700 women in my Facebook group. I serve clients one-on-one if they're needing career coaching. So my 3 core areas are career clarity, personal branding, and then relationship management. And this is a cycle that goes through their various career seasons.
Absolutely love it. All right. And the great educator Barnes, tell us about all the amazing work that you do, because I'm telling you, y'all are doing the work. I got to hear about it.
Yeah. So one of the last conversations I had with my dad before he passed away was about me potentially starting a education consulting business. And I was like, I don't know, because, I was raised to get a good job, stay up for retirement, be responsible. So my father preached, debt-free living. So that was my thing. So I was like, I don't know, Dad. And so my dad was like, well, you have a different problem, because what was happening during the pandemic, I was a school administrator co-supervising the middle school. It was a K school, but I was co-supervising the middle school. And I was taking off of work to do these consulting gigs because some schools are like, oh, we'll meet with you after school. But some schools like, I want you here during the day. And I was doing that when I was a literacy coach. And so my dad said, the problem you have, you don't have to look for clients. People already want to work with you. You already have the clients. He said, a lot of times people want to create a business and then they're trying to figure out how to get people. And I didn't think about it that way. So the day after my dad died, I was going to see him again. And I was going to tell him that I was going to do this thing. But he died the day before I was going to go to my parents' house to go see him. So I was like, well, I'm just going to go do this. So I wrapped up my year as a school administrator, which was really hard because I got into school administration. I did the school administration program at Marian University. And if you're looking for a good leadership program, Marian is the place to go. They really help you develop as a leader. They really help you get to your why. And it really helps you understand that organizations contain people and how to really relate and manage people appropriately. And I haven't heard anybody I haven't heard of other programs that really gets to that part of that transformational leadership. So, I wanted to kind of prove to myself, as like Dr. Obidike said earlier about sometimes we do things because we're trying to prove it to ourselves. So I wanted to prove to myself that I could, do this thing. So it was hard to walk away from my administration job, but that same job was the job that only gave me 3 days off when my dad died and told me I only needed 1 day to plan the funeral, 1 day to attend, and 1 day to grieve after it. So if that's how you feel about me after I earned a performance bonus and performed well, then I don't need to be here. So Blazing Brilliance is the education consulting company where I coached teachers, coach school administrators. I help schools with literacy, multilingual learners, professional development, and classroom and school building climate. So I've done work in Batesville, Indiana. I've done work here in Indianapolis, and K-12 sector of sometimes universities, and then sometimes education adjacent organizations. So there are a lot of organizations that work with children, but they are not schools. So I do work that way. Then my husband and I, and so that started in 2021. My husband and I co-founded Brave Brothers Books, which is a publishing company that we founded back in 2019. So right before the pandemic, which craziness. But that company, my kids are a part of it. Not only did my kids, they're the author of the first 2 books we published. They also help us be beta readers, look at manuscripts. So they help us sell our books. And so it was a labor of love because as an English teacher, I really got frustrated about the amount of work I had to do to find diverse texts. I am pro classic literature. I love me some Shakespeare, some Edgar Allan Poe, some Charles Dickens. But I also want kids to see themselves and other kids to see kids that they don't look like. So I'm like, I can keep writing about the problem or I can do something about the problem. So right now we have 4 more books that are about to come out. And most of the people I'm working with are either educators that want to write a book and we publish their book. They do not pay us. We're not a vanity publisher. And if you're looking to publish, do not pay anybody to publish your book. You're going to get ripped off. Don't do that. And then I am the editor-in-chief for Indie Kids Winning. We are a nonprofit organization. We used to be named Indie K-12 when we were still part of the Bright Beam Education Post network. I still do write for Education Post as well. And that happened during March 1st of this year, which was crazy because I had no intent of becoming this editor-in-chief and executive director of a nonprofit while finishing up my doctoral program. But it's been great. We've been able to partner with the Indianapolis Recorder. So we provide content to the Indy Recorder as well. Today I was down at the government building because there was a meeting about Gary Community Public Schools. If you don't know, they were taken over in 2017. So I will be writing about the interesting things I heard there today. So if you want to connect with me, I write, I publish books, I do education consulting, and I try to be a good parent and a good wife. So
you are definitely all those things, and we appreciate that. And finally, let me tell y'all folks, this man definitely gave a young man named Dr. John C. Turner a shot as soon as I got my doctorate done to come on and create this incredible healthcare camp at Marian University. Dr. Clint, talk a little bit about the healthcare camp.
First, I'm very inspired by the other two. I'm now interested in writing a book, and I
Here we
wish I
go.
was a woman, so that Dr. Obidike would come coach me. That would be awesome.
Everybody wants to write a book. Look at that. Everybody. Hey, you got some great doctors here that'll teach you how to do it. We love it. We love it.
No, we're doing some fascinating things, some exciting things at Marion. Dr. Barnes talked a little bit about it, and I also want to make it do a quick shout out for the Educators College. That's our school of education at Marion that houses the academic program that I just graduated from, and Dr. Latanya Turner is the dean of that school, and she's a wonderful, absolutely wonderful human being and a friend and a mentor. If you've never met Dr. Latanya Turner, please put that on your priority list because she is amazing.
Yep.
I work in the health professions, which is also an amazing place, primarily with the College of Osteopathic Medicine and the Layton School of Nursing. And we decided just a few years ago that we were sort of tired of kicking the tires when it comes to why, answering the question why are we struggling so much with our finding diverse candidates for these programs. And we did some research, and we found that really the one of the issues we're looking at is in the pool of people who even know about health professions as careers. That sort of the wide variety of health professions.
Yeah.
And so and that's sort of a national thing, is the very limited number of people who are in middle school, high school, even thinking about what are the thousands of different career opportunities for me. And so our focus has been on those who are lower resourced, those who identify as African American and Latino, and we want to increase the number of students, middle school and high school students in the greater Indianapolis area that are sort of looking beyond just becoming a doctor or a nurse, or even within nursing and medicine, understanding the hundreds of directions and pathways within those careers that are available to them. So we now have a pretty robust system where we host groups of middle school and high school kids on campus for clinical demonstrations in our simulation center all throughout the year. And then we also host a summer camp dedicated to health professions careers that Dr. Turner helped get off the ground 2 summers ago. And we are up to 75 campers in that week-long adventure. And they really leave inspired. We know they leave inspired because, number one, we're starting to see students who are coming back and attending the camp multiple times. And we are seeing enrollment at Marion University from these campers who are now majoring in all kinds of different majors, not just medicine and nursing, but all kinds of majors at Marion, hoping, and their plan is to enter a different medical career, such as biomedical engineering, or using. We also have students who are entering psychology and even sociology with goals of using that in a healthcare setting. We obviously see a significant number of nursing majors. Nursing is one of our most popular majors at Marion University, and then pre-med and what we call biomedical science. We're also really promoting research as a career, biomedical studies as a career in research.
Let me tell y'all, folks, this man literally saved my life, allowing me to be a part of this great program, because I had just defended my dissertation in December 2020, and I didn't have a job. I didn't have no money. And this man literally came and said, I see the work you're doing on LinkedIn. I know
Mhm.
how much you care about inner city Indianapolis to youth. I need you to come on board and help out with this. And I said, okay, maybe, I'd do it for like $1,000 or something like that. He said, John, I need you to give me a real number, like a real number. This man gave me my first big opportunity to come on board as a consultant and help out create this program. And I'm thankful to him. I'm truly thankful to him because it was an incredible opportunity. So we're a little bit over time. Once again, this is the Doc Chat, Dr. John C. Turner. I hope y'all got just a few more minutes with me because a huge thing came down today. And I just want y'all thoughts, real honest thoughts, as we're going to go into it. So let me get it just pulled up just to make sure we put a little bit of preface to what we're talking about here. If you was under a rock today, you probably missed it. Get that out the way. So Supreme Court just dropped affirmative action. Ironically enough, it came at Harvard, which was one of the founding universities in the whole nation, who is just about to bring on a Black woman as the president, which it's all kind of thoughts I have in my mind. But I want to hear from you all. I want to start with Dr. Obidike, your thoughts on this, whatever is on your heart, what you thought when you first saw it. Just give us some light on where are we and where are we headed because of this legislation that just dropped.
I'll be brief. Am I surprised? Am I shocked? No, just looking at the way things have been going with a lot of these rulings recently, and I feel sometimes we are going backwards. But I think being hopeful moving forward, laws passed or not, we have to be focused on the mission of being more equitable in our practices. And I'm sure that with the leaders that we have in place, that we can get creative and find new ways to still continue that mission.
Okay. Dr. Barnes, your thoughts?
Well, it was interesting that this happened today because I was talking with my fellow writers who are Indie Kids Winning, because obviously this would be something that we was covered. And I'm like, you know what? We put up something, but I was like, I'm not really going to talk about this today. I'm just going to listen to what's happening. And then Dr. Turner's like, oh, we're going to talk about this at the end of the show. I'm like, man, snaps. So I guess my biggest issue with this is I think everyone knew this was going to come. If you've been following the Supreme Court, the voting thing that came before them, people saw it as a win. So I'm like, if we got to win, we're going to take an L somewhere, right? So I felt like this is where we're going to take an L. My issue is about how this has been presented. It's been presented as if people have gotten into college because of their skin color. And I don't believe that's true. It's a misunderstanding of what it was. It was saying that we need to look at who is being brought in. And if we don't have enough Black students, what is the why and what can we do? And the reason why I want to say that is because then you get this narrative of, like, when I go to Purdue, people assuming I'm an affirmative action enrollee, I'm on a minority scholarship. And I was asked that point blank by other white students, I bet you don't have any tuition because you on one of those minority scholarships. You got in here because you were Black. And I'm like, so what's your GPA? Oh, my GPA was actually higher than yours. Maybe that's why I got in here. And then when they're like, well, I didn't pay tuition. I'm like, oh, I got free tuition because my dad got shot during the Vietnam War. That's why I got free tuition. It's not because I'm Black, which makes people get really awkward when you're just giving the facts. So for me, I think that we have to focus on getting kids into college, because regardless of this going whatever way, I think we get kids into college, but they don't finish college. So a lot of schools shout about their graduation rates and interest into college, but we don't know if those kids finish. So just like anything in history, y'all throw up another roadblock, we just go around it. So I know a lot of people are upset, but I would really keep the focus on that. Affirmative action is not letting people get in because they were Black. That was not what it ever was. And what's being struck down is the ability to make sure that you have an equitable number of people from diverse backgrounds going into your school and not having barriers. So I don't know if that was a nutshell, but that's all I got to say about it.
Nutshell, we love to hear. We appreciate it. Dr. Whitson, your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are similar. In the work we're doing at Marion, Part of our goal is surrounding the research that shows when we enroll students who are from communities who lack access to healthcare, those students often go back and serve in those communities. And so that's really one of the driving reasons, that we would appreciate a more diverse medical student body and nursing student body and so forth. I don't think this is a big surprise, but it does feel like a loss. It does feel like that something that we had known for a while is now not the same. And so maybe there's some mourning that goes along with that. But I'm someone who tries to see the bright side of everything, and perhaps this is a moment that will sort of wake everyone up to help better understand that we don't live we don't live in a completely equitable society, right? I think the folks who would argue against affirmative action would say, would claim things like reverse discrimination and issues of equality and equity are a thing of the past, and those kinds of statements. And hopefully this is a wake-up call to help producing more data and research that shows we're not quite there yet to what that idealized version that comes across in political talk is.
Oh yeah. We appreciate everybody, like I said, tuning in, all the great comments. Everybody that's a viewer, we appreciate y'all so very much. Hey, we went in a little over time today, but we appreciate that. So we're going to let Dr. Obidike tell us where folks can find you, and give us a final tip you would give to those doctorate students out there.
All right. Well, thank you all for those who are tuned in and those who are in the chat. I see you. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out the most on social media. So you see my name here on the screen. You can search my name, or you can put in the hashtag She Leads Beautifully, and then you can find me and follow me that way. A big tip that I would say for anyone who is starting the doctoral process or in the middle of it and struggling, I would say is to find support early on and to stay consistent with that support. So if it means that you need to find a community, there are plenty of free ones on Facebook. If you want to have the paid ones, by all means, but just having people in your corner, especially if you're someone who needs that push, or that encouragement that's ongoing. I mean, everything in life, we can't do it alone, and neither can this doctoral process. So I recommend that for sure.
That's awesome. We appreciate that. We appreciate it. Dr. Barnes, where can folks find you? One tip to those interested in that doctorate journey.
Educator Barnes, educatorbarnes.com. I'm Educator Barnes on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. Kind of make it simple. My one tip is to figure out and I know there's going to be people that disagree with this, but figure out what you want to do your research on. And every single class that you take, try to write a paper that goes along with that. And then let me tell you how deep this is really, really quickly. I had a class I had to take, and we had this other project. I'm like, they don't have nothing to do with my topic. I actually reached out to the professor and said, hey, I have been working on this topic for this many years. I had already got IRB. I'm like, can I do a different project? And he let me do a different project. So I had 3 different classes where I did a different project, because I'm not here to take classes to take taking classes. I'm here to take classes for an end goal. So a closed mouth doesn't get fed. That's what the black elder used to tell me. So if you want something in your doctoral program, ask for it, because many times they are flexible within certain parameters. So that's my big tip.
That is huge. And nobody's going to be mad at you for that, because I tell folks the same thing. If you're going to be here to do research while you're doing your classes. So when you get to your dissertation, you're done the research. You already have a lot of it done. That's a great tip. We appreciate that. Dr. Whitson, where can folks find you? And one tip to anybody interested in a doctoral degree.
I'm a quick Google search away. My email is cwhitson@marion.edu. I really enjoy coffee conversations. So if anyone is interested in talking, I'd be happy to. I'm located here in the Indy metro area, and Marion is located just a little northwest of downtown. I completely agree with these other thoughts being shared. I think I highly recommend higher education. I highly recommend doctoral work. Um, but I think, having really solid answers to the why question is a necessity. Otherwise you'll really be sort of thrown off here or there. I also agree with the idea of every moment you get to work on your research, your dissertation. I would take it in other courses if if it doesn't matter to the program, and if it's it's your doctoral journey. It's your program. It's not theirs. I think that's another thing that I quickly sort of became aware of as an undergraduate student. You walk into college, and it's sort of like there's all these professors who know everything, and I know nothing, and I'm here to do what they tell me to do, right? And then eventually, hopefully, over over the course of the education, you become more of an owner. But then in doctoral work, you're the owner of this on day one, and you got to take that seriously.
That's good. That's awesome.
You're driving the car, not the other way around.
That's right. That's right. This has been an amazing talk, Dr. Obidike, and we appreciate the little one there, Educator Barnes, my good friend, Dr. Barnes there, Dr. Clinton Whitson. We appreciate that. No apologies needed. We love the little ones. We love them so much, and we are so happy that you all are amazing parents and have told the true story that you can get this doctor degree done with that great help and be a great parent at the same time. Thank y'all so much. We appreciate everybody for tuning in to the Doc Chat. We'll be back next week. And until next time, thank you for all the listeners and viewers and comments. We'll say peace out.
Thank you, JT.
Right.